Have you ever been absolutely sure about something so sure, you'd bet your entire paycheck on it only to discover you were completely wrong? Not just a little off, but that the thing you remember so vividly, never actually existed that way. Maybe it's a brand logo you've seen a million times since you were a kid, or a famous movie line you and your friends have been quoting for years. But when you finally look it up, the reality is different. If this sounds familiar, welcome to one of the strangest and most compelling mysteries of our time. The Mandela effect. And if you think this is just a simple case of bad memory, you're in for a shock. The Mandela effect isn't just about a few people mixing up small details. It's about millions of people, all around the world, remembering the exact same incorrect thing in the exact same way. That's what makes it so chilling. Let's run through some of the classics. The Monopoly Man. Rich Uncle Pennybugs, picture him in your head. Does he have a monocle? Millions say yes, but he's never had one. Ever. How about the evil queen in Snow White? We all know the line. Mirror, mirror on the wall. ... double. Quotes. Right. Wrong. The actual line is magic mirror on the wall. Think about Curious George. What does he look like? A monkey. So he must have a tail. But he doesn't. He never has. And what about those beloved children's books? The Berenstain Bears. It's always been spelled Berenstain with an A. C-3PO from Star Wars. He wasn't all gold. He's had a silver leg this whole time. Pikachu's tail. That black tip, you remember? It was never... And it keeps going. The air freshener for breath. It's spelled with one E in the middle, not two. The Fruit of the Loom logo. That big cornucopia horn of plenty behind the fruit. It never existed. The JFK assassination footage. Most people remember for people in the car, but there were 6. And of course, the phenomenon's namesake, Nelson Mandela. Millions of people vividly recall him dying in prison back in the 1980s. They remember seeing the news reports, the funeral on TV. But he was released from prison, became president of South Africa, and lived until 2013. These aren't just typos or minor misrememberings. People describe profound emotional reactions when they encounter the correct version: shock, confusion, even a sense of betrayal. It feels like reality itself has shifted right under their feet. So, how do we explain this mass cognitive dissonance? One fascinating idea points back to the 1990s. After I made a video on this topic before, a viewer left a comment that absolutely blew my mind. They pointed out that so many of these Mandela effects are tied to American media from that era: VHS tapes, brand logos, and Saturday morning shows. Back then, media was messy. TV broadcasts had different frame rates. Local stations made their own edits and cuts for time or censorship. Scenes were even the version of a cartoon you watched after school might not have been the same as the one on the Blockbuster VHS or the one shown in theaters. And those early, sometimes flawed versions are the ones that got burned into our collective childhood memory. Decades later, when the only versions available are the remastered or definitive editions, they feel wrong. It feels like reality changed. But maybe our realities were never perfectly aligned in the first place. The commenter called it a massive, unintentional social experiment where mass media accidentally rewrote the memories of an entire generation. But there's another, more scientific theory that comes from neuroscience. Our memories aren't perfect video recordings. They're more like reconstructions. Every single time you recall a memory, your brain rebuilds it from scattered fragments, emotions, and logic. And when there are fuzzy details, your brain conveniently fills in the blanks. This process is called confabulation. This explains why we see certain patterns. We expect a monkey like Curious George to have a tail. We expect a caricature of a rich man like the Monopoly guy to wear a monocle. We expect a character with yellow and black coloring like Pikachu to have a black tip on his tail. Our brain corrects what we perceive to fit our expectations. And here's the kicker. Confidence has nothing to do with accuracy. In one famous study, researchers showed people a doctored photo of themselves as a child on a hot air balloon ride that never happened. Later, a significant number of them remembered the ride in vivid detail, describing the weather and how they felt. This is called the misinformation effect. Once a wrong version is repeated enough, your brain can adopt it as an authentic memory. But here's the twist that makes things really weird. Some of these Mandela effects aren't just confined to one country. They're global, which leads us to a much wilder theory. Parallel realities. What if these memories are actually real, but they're from a different branch of the universe? Quantum physics has a concept called the many worlds interpretation, which suggests that every possible outcome of every event exists in its own separate timeline. In one universe, the Monopoly man, Asterisk. Does Asterisk have a monocle? In another, Nelson Mandela, Asterisk, did Asterisk die in prison? What if, somehow, our consciousness can shift between these times? You wake up one day in a slightly different reality, where logos look wrong, movie quotes are off, and history is just a little different. It sounds like science fiction, I know, but some very serious physicists believe it's a possibility. People even report experiencing Mandela effects in clusters, like they're witnessing waves of reality rewriting itself. Of course, there's no proof. It's just a mind-bending theory. Which brings us to another popular explanation. The simulation hypothesis. What if we are all living inside a hyper-realistic digital simulation, like an incredibly advanced computer program? It's an idea that people like Elon Musk have said is highly probable. The philosopher Nick Bostrom famously argued that if any civilization ever reaches a point where it can run ancestor simulations, it would likely run billions of them, making it statistically almost certain that we are in one right now. If that's true, the Mandela effect could simply be a glitch in the code. Or maybe it's a patch a quiet update that rewrites a piece of history but fails to overwrite your memory of it. Think of it like a video game patch that changes a character's appearance. Longtime players will remember the old version, even though it's gone. Maybe February's really did have to ease in version 1.0. Maybe the Monopoly man had a monocle until the last system update. The universe already behaves in ways that are weirdly digital. Atoms act like math. Quantum particles behave like pixels, only rendering into a definite state when observed. Maybe these Mandela glitches are just bugs in the system. And then there's the most human theory of all, shifts in consciousness. Some spiritual traditions believe that our external reality is a projection of our internal state of mind. As our collective consciousness evolves and shifts, so does the world it creates. This could explain why the Mandela effect feels so personal and emotional. These aren't just logos and movie lines. They're tied to our childhood, our identity, and our sense of a stable reality. Maybe these anomalies aren't glitches at all, but breadcrumb signs of a collective awakening, pointing to the fact that reality is more malleable than we think. So, what's really going on? Is it media confusion? The fallibility of human memory? Are we sliding between parallel universes? Are we living in a simulation? Or is our consciousness collectively reshaping the world? The honest answer is, we don't know. But one thing is crystal clear. The phenomenon of the Mandela effect is real. Not because reality is necessarily changing, but because the experience of it that's shared, deeply felt confusion is happening to millions of people. And that, in itself, is worth paying attention to. Now, I really want to hear from you. Have you had a Mandela effect moment? Is there something you remember so clearly, only to discover it was never that way? Share your story in the comments below. The more we compare our notes, the more patterns we might uncover. Maybe that will bring us closer to an answer. Or maybe we're just not meant to know yet. If you enjoyed this deep dive into one of modern life's greatest mysteries, please hit that like button. Share this with a friend who loves to question reality. And be sure to subscribe for more. Together, we'll keep pulling at the threads of what's real. Thanks for watching.